just see what your hands are doing and when you're placing it, how I can. Before we start, I'd just like to mention that down on the right hand side of the screen right now there is a subscribe button, and if you could please press that so that you can make sure you get any future videos as you desire, that'd be great. Okay, so today is based on some questions that you've been sending me, which I do appreciate. So let's get them covered. And by the way, I'm very thankful for all the people that have been contacting me. And sorry I can't do the whole course online, but it actually does have to be done in person. So in the meantime, question 1 was, do I follow some kind of tradition which says somebody has to give you the cards, or do I go and buy them myself? So I make reference in one of my books, I think it was Witchcraft Theory in Practice, to a chapter that's called Gifts and Flattery. And Gifts and Flattery looks at the agendas that may be behind people giving you gifts and the agendas behind people who are flattering you. So, do I say that they're all non-essential? Of course not. I think they're lovely. But they expect me to be their best friend, and I don't know them. And they expect something in return. So, on that note, no, what you do is you go out and buy them yourself. And is there anything at all traditional, mystical, ceremonial or ritual about the acquisition of a pack of tarot cards? No, there's not. So if you acquire them yourself, you don't owe anything to anybody. Do you wrap them and do you keep them well and truly away from other people? Got a bit of a box here made by a very dear old friend, Tom Van Duren, and in the box I keep my tarot cards. I don't keep them in the box or wrapped up in silk or leather as a way of stopping external energies or what people call negative energies. That's for another discussion. No, I keep them put in their box so that they don't disintegrate too quickly. Well, I know it's the same thing. It says, discuss not taking gifts from clients. They might mean well, but you'll end up with just stuff. Number 3, is barter okay? An equal exchange is called reciprocity. And anybody who's interested, please get hold of a copy of Braiding Sweetgrass from Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is a Potawatomi woman in an Ojibwe woman who writes about reciprocity, and I think reciprocity is very important. And if we come to the stage where the economy or the financial process of our society as we know it does collapse, I am going to take your organic vegetables and I am going to take your freshly killed wallaby. Thank you very much for that. In the meantime, I will deal with your money and spend it wisely. Or not. Okay, so that's barter. Next one. Oh yes, that was interesting. That was question 4, which says, why do I continue to use the same pack for decades? I started with seances when I was 13. I won't even discuss what happened before that, but I did start with seances when I was 13, and I was in a position where I was very interested in things to do with the mystical and the occult, because the old lady who moved into the house where I lived, who was called a grandmother despite the fact we're not related, read cards and tea leaves. Now, she was never wrong, and that even down to me knowing the week before she died that she was going to die and how she was going to die. And it was pretty spooky, I can tell you. But a really good example was I was about 16 and I had a date organised and the person didn't turn up on time. And I went to her with my empty teacup and she turns it 3 times in the saucer and says, look, just give him a break. They've been working all day, they've come home tired, they're asleep, and they'll call you about 10. And if you still feel like going out, stay dressed, because there's no malintent. And of course, the person phones me at 10 o'clock and says, really sorry, I was tired, I fell asleep, and do you still want to go out? So I never had a disbelief, I guess. Does that mean I'm gullible? No, not at all. I'm very skeptical and I'm very cynical. And is that to my disfavor? I don't think so, because there's so many products and there's a plethora of how-tos and whatevers, and I'd rather not get too deeply into all that. So I use the same pack because something happens, and that something is called familiarity. Over the years, tarot, which is not the cards, by the way, let's be very clear. Tarot is not the cards. Tarot works through the cards. It can be just as effective if somebody hands me their palm, which happened recently, and I got sort of into trouble by interpreting some total stranger's involvement in the military as a 16-year-old. Anyway, what happens over a period of time when you're using the same pack over and over again is that you completely couldn't care less about the images, and they just become doorways, and they become doorways to stories that mix and merge themselves together. And that's very different. And as time passes, that will change. And when you're using the same pack, and I have got no problem against oracle cards, but I choose not to use them. So the Rider-Waite pack that I've been using now for 42 years starts to open other doorways. Because, for example, I can remember in the early 1980s when I was living in the high country around Castlemaine, and I had a young man come to me for a reading. And when they sat down opposite me and I threw out the cards after they'd shuffled, which is another story of importance because they shuffle and therefore you're reading what they tell you. As such, you're an interpreter. Okay. What they showed me was a sequence of tarot that involved the Devil card, the Two of Cups, and Temperance card, or variations of that theme. And when I looked at the three cards, I went, don't know what this is. Then I saw it, and it was the Grim Reaper in the bowling alley ad. And I couldn't say anything. And the person opposite me said, come on, tell me what you see. And I said, I don't want to. They said, tell me what you see. And I said, I don't want to. And this is the hard bit, and this is the bit that's going to really sort out who's going to continue or who's not. Am I blowing my own horn? No, I'm just telling you the truth. I saw the Grim Reaper in the bowling alley ad, and I said to this person, you got AIDS, mate. And they said, yeah, I know. I just want to know how long I'm going to live and how I'm going to be able to sort out my will to protect my beloved. I then had a series of probably 300 to 400 young men up from Melbourne for readings so that they can sort it out. We'll get on to another story about that, but that's very important. What is important is that tarot will teach you by repeating and repeating and repeating certain kinds of information until you get it set. It does not, however, intend for you to stick with that pattern. Tarot will change as you progress, and it's going to change its dynamics as you progress. What was important about that series of 300 odd people was that I never saw death, which is the Ace of Swords death card, or the Ace of Swords Ten of Swords, so death card Ten of Swords. Back then, I never saw death for them. I actually saw the Ten of Cups time and time and time again. Because the Ten of Cups essentially means home. So that starts a lot of thinking. What home means. It can be a house, but is it just a house? No, it isn't. So I continue to use the same pack because the same images will start to change over a period of time, and you'll see other things. You'll see more or different things to what you originally thought the cards meant. Now, when I've got, what else have I got in my questions? Excuse me, I've got another computer here and I'm trying to work out how to get my mouse working. Okay. Right. Next question, really important one. You don't shuffle the cards yourself. So if you're sitting down with a client, or even when I'm working on Skype, so that person's got to do the shuffling. Otherwise, it's you going into those cards, your story, and you're going to get really, really screwed over by the actual process of tarot if you do that. It's the same when you try to read your own cards. It's the same when you try to read cards for your family, or you try to read cards for your best friend. You don't have the objectivity to say, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. That's the point of tarot, is to be able to say it like you spay it and not muck around with what you think a situation is or who you presume a certain individual is. Because I tell you, 9 times out of 10, you are going to be incorrect because you've assumed. An assumption is malengro. We don't do it. Okay. So you don't read for yourself. And you do hand the other person the card so the tarot can work through them. And with Skype, as I've found when I'm doing remote viewing, the person on the other end, no matter where they are in the world, they acquire the same pack that I work, and I read and they lay them out. And it's just absolutely astonishing how that works. But then when you do think about the reality of space, there's nothing in the way of us. It's just a matter of perception, that is. Is tarot witchcraft? Define witchcraft. Okay. Is tarot witchcraft? Absolutely. Is it witchery? Absolutely. I don't agree with the concept of being a witch. We've heard of that. This is objectification, and I'd rather not actually go into objectification. As Robin Wall Kimmerer mentions in her article, The Grammar of Animacy, the objectification of this world is common in the English language, which I have no problem with, and I love etymology. What's occurring is the this, the that, a something else, instead of what Robin will do, for example, when she's experiencing a new plant, because Robin Wall Kimmerer, Dr. Kimmerer, is a botany professor, is they will say, who are you, rather than what is it. Changing your language will matter. So what is witchcraft? Witchcraft is a very modern term that is used in other parts of the world. For example, in Australia, the word kudacha, amongst the Tungus people, shaman, and curandera in, of course, parts of South America. It's a medicine. The work of witchcraft is medicine. But medicine is not necessarily taking a pill or drop it a draft. As you know, what medicine is to be able to go a little bit further and a little bit deeper. And as such, witchcraft is very similar to the understanding of mycelium, and that everything is interconnected and interwoven beneath the surface where we can't see it. When I was living in Miller Street in Melbourne, I'd sit outside at night and have my conversations with the person that hung over my fence, and I call that person Spindletree, sharing communication with Spindletree pretty much every night. One of the things that bothered me about where I was living was the big slab of concrete that covered the soil in the backyard. I wanted to know who would be an idiot enough to put a big slab of concrete over the top of what could be very plantable soil. And the concrete spoke back to me and said, I'm looking after the people who live in the dark, and we are countless. We are legion, we are trillions, and if I wasn't here, the sunlight would have killed us a long time ago. So there's viewpoints from a human point of view that have been subliminally influence us from the viewpoint of others. And then there's the analysis or the relationship that we have with plants and rock and bird people that are very, very different. This is mysticism in its essential form. As such, there's one other thing. This is mysticism in its essential form, and this does bother orthodoxy. About this time, I will mention that in 1951, for the first time in hundreds of years, the Witchcraft Act was repealed. Before that, you could go to jail, or before that, you would get hung, or you could get burnt, and it does still happen in many countries around the world. But the Witchcraft Act that was repealed in 1951 didn't quite go away. It became known as the Fraudulent Mediums Act. And when I was harassed by a person who ran the markets in Castlemaine back in the day when I was reading tarot there, they wanted to get me, as did the Church of Christ in Castlemaine, wanted to get me. This person threatened me with the police. They wanted me out of their market, threatened me with the police because I was reading tarot with this act. Threatened me with police action over this act. But the difference is I'm not a fraud. So if you're a fraud, you actually are subject to litigation. You actually are subject to, if not a prison sentence, well, at least some kind of fine. So knowing that is really important, and you can make your decisions regarding where you work and how you work from there. Now, before I go, I want to mention this puppy. It's what's called the High Priestess card. Don't go polishing your fingernails right now, because it's not necessarily what it seems to be. There is something extraordinary about this particular card and its meaning when it falls with other things that you won't necessarily pick up today. Am I kidding? Oops, I've got to watch out for the light here. No. Okay, so if you've got these cards at home, if you can pull this one and stick it in front of you and realize what you're missing, that'd be awesome. And you can send me your replies, because most of the time people get it wrong. And it's very similar to many cards, because a lot of people have read the little booklet that's come with the Rider-Waite Tarot in a box. And I'm going, don't do that! Put it in the bin!